Welcome to First But Last, brought to you by the Wyoming Humanities. I am your host, Emmy DeGrappa. Wyoming is called the Equality State because we were the first to give women the right to vote. 150 years later, we wonder what Wyoming women think about the progress toward equality now. Let's find out, and thank you for listening. Today, we are talking to Natalia Duncan Macker. She is currently serving as a member of the Board of County Commissioners in Teton County, Wyoming. And she also serves on the Land Quality Advisory Board for Wyoming. Natalia is also the Artistic Director for Off Square Theater Company in Jackson Hole. Welcome, Natalia.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. I love having you because I think you're juggling all these balls in the air. You're a mom of 2 boys. You're a Teton County Commissioner, you're an Artistic Director, and you're also serving on a Land Quality Advisory Board. How do you do all that?
With lots of help and coffee.
And coffee. So, what was your journey to Wyoming?
I came to Wyoming for the very first time on a vacation with some family members, and as is the story for many people in this part of the state, got stuck. So we came on vacation and then had the opportunity to be here for a summer working in the arts community and decided that we would have our wedding here and then decided to stay because we fell in love with the geography of the area, but also with the closely knit, small community feeling.
And what do you find most intriguing about living in Wyoming?
As I have spent time both here in the northwestern corner, but also had the opportunity to travel around the state, I think the potential and the promise in our state is so great because we aren't done evolving and becoming who we are. And I think as a state, we are still figuring some things out, and that is exciting to me because there is the opportunity to participate in that. Part of probably how I ended up doing so many things is that if you're willing to do the work, I found you can get involved in things that other places you might not be able to be involved in. But also, I have really loved the spirit that has grown in me as I have lived here and decided to raise my family here, and have wanted to impart to them what it means to be responsible for the beautiful place that we get to care for, but also to take care of each other. And people in Wyoming do a good job of helping out their neighbors, and I love that.
So what does it mean when you are on the Land Quality Advisory Board for Wyoming?
So that board is a statutory requirement for the Department of Environmental Quality, and we are the first step in rulemaking for land uses with the DEQ. So we review different rule packages as a layer of public input and public review. And that has been fascinating because I do not have a background in mining, but have had the fortune of the wonderful staff at the DEQ helping educate me, and the other board members who do come from that background help me understand their processes and, learn about some of the basic functions of how our government supports our state and the interplay between industry and government in our state and how we support what our state has to offer.
And so, as a county commissioner from Teton County, how do you work with the other county commissioners across the state?
I would like to say that we work well together. I have the pleasure of being part of the County Commissioners Association. And when I first became a commissioner, it was actually some commissioners over in Campbell County that I met very soon after I became a commissioner here. And I think on paper, you would think we don't have much in common and wouldn't have much in common, but they were very open and embracing and welcoming. And I think that was probably the first step in really demonstrating for me that things are not always what they seem, and that it's really about relationships, and getting things done in Wyoming is really about relationships, which means you have to invest in people for who they are as people, not just what you might assume about them because of where they live or what they look like or what they do for work.
Right. And as a woman, and you working with other county commissioners around the state, is there a number of women working in those roles?
There are, I think now, 16 or 17 county commissioners who are women out of 93. So we're growing in our numbers this year. We had 2 counties appointed commissioners this year, and in both instances, they have appointed women to fill vacancies, which has been exciting to see. I will admit that I'm certainly the person at our county commission meetings that is always asking questions about the wage gap or things related to women. And I think my male colleagues from around the state have gotten used to that they know I'm going to be bringing those issues up. But I have been pleasantly surprised at the reception of just bringing in different issues to that group of people who work very closely with their local communities and are very in touch with what's happening in their areas and have been able to start some conversations with other elected officials about early childhood education and other things that women just may be more aware of what those needs are because of their background. And so I think local government is a really wonderful place for us in Wyoming to focus on getting more women in government because structurally it is often more compatible with family responsibilities, which women may have. And I think women are uniquely suited, particularly for local government, because it's very solution-oriented, it's very practical, it's day-to-day nuts and bolts. And I think women have the skills for that, whether they believe that they do or not, and have a lot to bring to that juggling act that county commissioners, especially as generalists covering a lot of issues, deal with. And so I'm very passionate about getting more women in local government in Wyoming.
When you say local government, that is like at the city level and not the state level.
Correct. I mean city and town councils and the county level.
Right. So it's a common fact that there aren't very many women in the state legislature. And what do you think keeps women out of those roles?
I think there are a lot of variables that result in women perhaps self-selecting out. I think the very first reason why we don't have more women in the legislature is we don't have enough women running for office. And if women aren't running, then they're not going to get elected. I think part of why women don't run is because of the setup. It depends on where you live in the state. It's not easy to leave a job or your family for 3 months in winter, especially if you live 8 hours away. And so I think those are very practical considerations. I think the economic considerations in terms of a job, not many people have a job that would allow them to leave for 3 months and then come back because you cannot do both of your jobs at the same time. And so those are not easy solutions, but I think we have to be realistic that there are barriers to participation by certain groups. I think anyone with young children is a big sacrifice to make, and we just have to acknowledge that that's what it is. And if there are things that we can do slowly over time to evolve the structure of our system that might make it more accessible and equitable for broader participation as our state evolves, I think we should look at those in order to ensure that we are making space for everyone to have a seat at the table.
Well, you brought up something interesting that I really haven't given a lot of thought to, but literally throughout Wyoming, Cheyenne's in one part of the state, and we have 9 months of winter. I think we had 10 this year.
I think you're right.
So you don't have the luxury of just driving or attending meetings when you have a family.
I agree with you. I think it's a place where technology can really be our friend. And I know the state legislature has taken steps to make some of the interim meetings that they have, that committees have, more available and accessible as part of their transparency measures. With my service on the Land Quality Board, it has been nice to work out different ways for certain meetings to be in virtual attendance. Partially, I think it saves money because then I'm not having to stay in a hotel and drive somewhere. And if you can get technology set up right, it can be, I think, fairly streamlined and make things possible, and that we should be exploring that in our state because the geography is what it is. But I think we need to also be willing to examine, just because we've done something this way for forever, whether or not we need to keep doing it that way. And are there possibilities that might allow us to move forward differently that could produce better results for the people in our state?
What was your passion in wanting to run for political office?
That is a great question, Emmy. I don't think I ever saw myself doing that until I moved to a place that I deeply cared about and where I saw the opportunity to represent other people and be able to make a difference. And that's what I think is great about government in Wyoming is people get together and they make decisions and you can see the change happen and participate in it because of the scale. And so probably the first domino in it was visiting the legislature and seeing so few women and wondering where everyone was and not realizing that the world was still like that. And that was part of my evolution as an adult woman and become a professional woman. And then asking myself where everyone was and why they weren't there, and realizing that someone has to step up. And if I was going to be talking about it, that I should be willing to do it. And so I ran for the legislature in a district where I lost, but had the opportunity to put in for a vacancy on the county commission, and then have run for the commission since then, and absolutely love county government and what we do in the community and what we're able to do in the different places we get to work, and the opportunity to have participation on statewide issues with a county perspective and be involved in that way.
What is your other career path? You're an artistic director, and so is your background in theater?
My background is in theater. My college degree is in theater, and I grew up performing as a dancer and an actress, and then discovered producing, which I really love because you get to bring all the elements together, decide what kind of conversation you want to have with a piece of art and put it all together, and have my dream job in theater here as an artistic director, and can't sit still. And so got involved in local government because I can't sit still, because I like things that are really hard for some reason. But really have also been pleasantly surprised at how the two different areas of work have informed each other, and that how I might select a play or find a play is informed by issues going on in our community or our state, and how we might be able to be a venue for a conversation that the community needs to have through a piece of art, or by bringing in diverse artists that the community gets to interact with and learn more about itself. Because I do think all art forms are wonderful, but theater particularly, because it has to do with the human body and the human voice and how we are in the world every day, is a vehicle by which a community can get to know itself better and how we experience it together. And so being able to bring the lens of both worlds is important. And then also, I think more artists getting involved in government across our country is vitally important, because artists are good problem solvers and creative thinkers. And I hope that more artists will decide that they can put the way that their brain works to solve the real world problems that we are facing in our society today.
That's interesting you say that, because I think that is really true about artists and problem solving and creativity. But at the same time, I think artists, and maybe you've experienced this as an artist, that people don't take you seriously.
I agree. I think we very much like to use the shorthand of how we tag and identify people. And I certainly faced that when I was running for office of, you don't have any experience in politics, like you're in theater. And I'm like, well, theater and politics actually have kind of a lot in common if you think about it. And so I think allowing ourselves, in our political system generally, to let human beings evolve as human beings and recognize that our elected leaders are people and that none of us are perfect and that we want to constantly learn and grow. And I think that's something that artists particularly are always learning and growing and evolving. And that's how most artists' practice exist. And so that willingness to keep being curious and exploring and digging deep is something that government and our governance structure as our democracy evolves over time needs, so that we are reinvigorating it and making sure that we are building the society that we intend to build. And we need the help of people that do that. And it's not just about bureaucracy.
Well, I love that. And I think that should be your mission, is to bring artists and policymakers together and have conversations. Because I think that people think, well, if you're a politician, you couldn't be an artist, or, vice versa. And really, put people in boxes, like you say. And so I think that would be a great mission for you. But I have another question, because you're a young mom. And how do you see yourself mentoring and influencing young women?
Thank you for that question. I think about this a lot. I do have 2 kids, and they're both boys. And it's a very odd dynamic sometimes in my house, because I am so passionate about helping young women and girls sort of embody themselves and embrace their dreams. I think the lesson that I have learned as I have continued to fill my plate up, and particularly in the transition to motherhood and what that means, has been that it's okay and it's necessary to ask for help. and that I don't have to do everything myself. And so I think that means having your lady tribe that are your ladies around you that can build you up on a day when only another woman can understand what you went through. And it also means having, if you have kids, if you have a spouse or a partner or other family members that help you with your kids, being able to be transparent about the help that you need when you need it and really create a partnership and facilitate that partnership and not just try to do everything that you think is expected of you, plus all the things that you are trying to do. Our narrative in society around that is changing, but for a long time, it seems to me, in the way that I grew up as well, that I was certainly encouraged to pursue everything I wanted to pursue, but I needed to also fulfill all the expectations as a woman and a mother. And in our house, that's not how it goes. We have shared caregiving duties between my husband and I. And that's what I want the future to be for my sons. I want them to be expecting to do just as much of the caregiving as they might do in other areas. And so I think it is about communicating with the people that you're close with, definitely having a lady tribe and people that you can rely on and be able to be yourself and let your guard down. And then I think together, collectively, we are moving in the right direction of allowing greater authenticity, particularly for women, and that there are multiple images of what success looks like for women, and that they aren't in competition with each other, and that if you want to choose to be at home and embrace that is as wonderful as a woman who chooses to embrace her career or try to find a meld of both, and that we aren't pitting those images against each other because we're creating unhealthy environments by which young girls judge themselves and make their choices, their professional choices.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think so too. Did the hashtag #MeToo movement affect you at all? Did it really resonate with you, or you didn't feel like it was something that was close to your heart?
I don't know that I felt like it was something in terms of personal experiences that impacted me the way that I know it has women that I know. So I am grateful for it because of that. What I think I have experienced that's been important about it is the continuing opening to talk about things that I think happen and that women experience that we often feel are isolating and wonder if anyone else has experienced it, whatever it is, whether that's the wage gap or anything that you think, oh, this must just only be happening to me, to then find out that it's happening to everyone. I think that model is just an interesting realm of self-awareness. And I think it is, having not had a personal experience that I participated in with that hashtag, but knowing people that have that feeling a little bit back to like what it means to let your guard down and to not have to feel like you as a person are being judged differently because you happen to be a woman and you were born as a woman. And it's really complicated. I'm still unpacking a lot about what it is, but I think it is the opening of the type of dialogue that we need to have, and that it's not just about women. It's like as the parent of two boys, I'm like, what does this mean for my sons? What do I want to teach my sons about how they participate in this world and in this conversation, because they are a big part of the conversation.
Right. You're right. It's not just about women. It's about men too. And it should be that conversation. Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to First But Last, brought to you by the Wyoming Humanities. Please join us again next week as we continue our conversations with women from around the state. You can also find us at thinkwy.org, where we continue the conversation on our blog about the history, journey, and the challenges of Wyoming's intrepid women living in the equality state. And if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe to the show and leave us a review on iTunes. Thank you for listening.